So we're gonna start the recording and start this meeting. Um, this is a open forum meeting, which is the purpose is to allow you to have any questions that you like about any topics that we've covered. And don't be shy. Just either raise your hand if you want to stay in line, or if you want to be a little more aggressive, just unmute yourself and start talking, and we can figure out how to organize you so that one person talks at a time. So is there anybody who has a question? Okay, Jamie gets to go first. She pushed the button first, the Jeopardy button or whatever.
Yeah,
And
it was like I was playing a slot machine. I got on it.
and then Tona will be next, and we'll keep going as time goes on. So Jamie, go ahead.
So I'm working to get more greens in, and my strategy that's working lately is to make a smoothie in the mornings. Then I've already got some in at breakfast, and that's really great. And then there's one other way I use them. Oh, I make a pea soup with kale, blend it all up. Does anybody else have any good get your spinach, chard, or kale in strategies?
Well, hi, it's Monica. Sometimes I'll just put I'll chop cabbage and kale together and I'll just keep a bag of it. And then sometimes I'll just put it on the bottom of a plate, like before I put rice on it or something, and or in a corn tortilla with other stuff, and either leave it raw or heat it up a little bit so it's cooked. Yeah,
That's a good one. Thanks.
sure.
I want to chime in for a moment. For those, I didn't really like cabbage for a long, long time, or didn't have much exposure to it. But just over the last 6 months, we've discovered purple cabbage that Gregor recommends. And it is a treat. It has a crunch to it. And it is just a fun food to have raw. If you want to steam it or whatever, you can do that. But it really goes with most everything. Thanks for
Thanks.
that. Okay, anything else, Jamie?
I think that's it for me.
Okay, and then, if you watch a video by Esselstyn, the mother and the daughter-in-law, I believe, they do a series on how to eat greens 6 times a day. They share different greens. It's on YouTube. And I'll get the name for you at some point. I have it on my list of things to share should we have time. You can grab a hot handful of arugula. You can grab a handful of spinach.
Mm.
You can grab a handful of, mixed greens, whatever you choose to do. There are so many ways that you can get greens in your life, and you just kind of start small. You don't have to start with a whole handful. We started our breakfast with one leaf of baby kale to start our greens. And we have progressed up to cups of cooked greens, along with another handful of or two of arugula and spinach. And so, we kind of crave that now. And, we feel good. So I encourage you all to get a few more greens in your life. Okay, let's go on to Tona and then Monica.
Okay.
Hey, good evening. The last couple of weeks, I have been taking note about like snacks and whatnot to kind of prep to take on trips. I'm getting ready to head to Mexico to visit family for a couple of weeks. I leave on Sunday. And so I've been thinking about like snacks for the airplane and whatnot, but was just wondering if y'all had any other ideas just about things to be thinking about while I'm in another country. Um, you know, I'm going to be kind of at the whim of the family to an extent. But any ideas or suggestions that y'all have would be helpful.
Anybody care to chime in? You're going to a great place, beans and rice. You know, it's gonna be easy for you to find that, but possibly
Yes, but
potatoes.
lard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're just gonna have some conversation with the people who are cooking and say, you know, that lard, you know, my doctor says I'm allergic to it.
Okay, that's
Eh,
helpful.
Because a lot of times what they do at Mexican restaurants is if it's a, like a restaurant setting, is they have pinto beans and black beans and different beans kind of in pots, and then they usually still have some of those, but then that's like earlier in the day, I think, and then towards the evening time, a lot of times they'll mash those up, add lard, and make refried beans out of them. But usually they still reserve some whole beans to the side, and so you can just make sure you ask for the whole beans on your taco salad or in your burrito or whatever you're going to do, instead of you just don't want to refry, because they usually you add the lard to it, like you're saying. And then like on the airplane, for me, I usually make a bag of mixed nuts. I'll put in like cashews and almonds and walnuts and raisins, and just kind of a little snack mix, and I keep that in my carry-on and
Okay.
down at my feet, and then I'm snacking on that. That's what I usually do on an airplane, and then make sure I drink plenty of water.
Okay.
If
Thank
you
you.
look through your stores, you'll find edamame
Mhm.
in bags. Some have wasabi with them if you like spice, some are plain.
Okay.
Chickpeas are another that
Okay.
will provide you with loads of fiber, both of those, loads of fiber, plenty of protein, and other healthy nutrients that you could probably live off for quite some time.
Okay.
You're going to have lots of fresh fruit down there.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
And the veggies, you're going to have plenty of veggies. You know, you try to keep them from using tons of oil if you can. And so oatmeal may be easy to find for you, but if not, quinoa is going to be around there, and you might learn to eat quinoa cereal for a breakfast treat, because I believe that's pretty common.
Okay. Thank you. Super helpful.
And you might take a few Larabars with you.
Okay.
If you get in an emergency, you know, they're a little processed, but it's kind of minimal. And I can't think of anything else right now. They do have like kale chips and stuff, but you're going to have plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables there. Anybody else have any thoughts about traveling down south of the border? Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Well, first of all, do you know about PIMP, which is potato in my purse?
No.
Yeah, you take cooked potatoes, and like when you're in airports and stuff like that, you can have a potato in your purse. Yeah.
Okay.
And in the States, at least while you're in this part, I do know that a friend and myself will go into like a gas station that has a microwave and microwave soups and stuff. So if you're I don't know how long you'll be still here. And then there's, do you know who Tammy is of Nutmeg Notebook? They went on a trip and they actually did a pretty lengthy YouTube thing on their channel about traveling, about their luggage and all kinds of stuff, and what they could pack and what they couldn't pack, you know. And I also know that I have friends that went to Canada just from here, you know, in the States. And when they went there, they thought they were going to be able to take things out of, I think it was coming back, that she's plant-based. And she said they took all her vegetables and everything. They wouldn't, out of their little camper, they wouldn't let them bring anything. So be cautious about what you spend your money on, you know, and maybe buy it there. But yeah, pimpins and all, always a good thing if you get into airports and places that, I don't know if you're going by plane.
I am.
Yeah, so there's certain things that you can take, and she's got some ideas about things that you're able to take.
Okay,
So
I'll
that
look
might
into that.
might
Thank
be
you.
helpful. And even if it isn't that time, you know, if you find people that
that will travel. But vegan traveling, you know, you might be able to find some more thoughts on that, but pimpin's a good thing, you know. I've sat outside many places with a sweet potato.
Thank you.
Good luck,
Right.
have fun.
Thank you, I will.
Monica, and
Okay,
then Jamie.
okay. I have two questions. One is about, I always forget what, like, I mean, I was trying to understand what inflammation is exactly. I mean, I know like that we eat foods that are processed, that it causes inflammation. It's bad for us. I know like arthritis is like inflamed joints, but inflammation in general, does that mean like, is it like on a cellular level that it like does something to our cells and it's bad? Or I was kind of trying to understand what, you know, what that means exactly, or what is it exactly? Maybe
Sure.
I'd have to be the
Sure.
scientist to understand it, but
Good. I can answer that. So a good way to kind of think about inflammation is we have acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. So acute inflammation means, so think about you get a cut, you know, get a cut with a knife on your hand or something when you're chopping vegetables, and you know it gets all red and swollen and painful and everything. And what's happening is all your immune system is responding, and so it's sending all your white blood cells and all the inflammatory markers, all kinds of inflammatory chemicals and things there to try to incite the healing process to try to bring those wound edges together, you know, and then, you know, pain is so that you will protect it. So kind of think about the normal physiology. That's what's supposed to happen. That's acute inflammation. So that's a good thing. And then of course, you know, sometimes the wound can get infected or something like that, and your body's trying to fight the infection and whatnot. So that's acute inflammation. So that's appropriate. That's what we need. But think about chronic inflammation is that process in motion, but at a much lower level. So like say like 10% of that acute inflammation at this low level, and it's happening all the time for days, weeks, months, years. And that's what chronic inflammation is. And almost every chronic disease has a component of chronic inflammation. So we, you know, see people that have a lot of chronic diseases, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia, you know, just all kinds of, think of all the chronic diseases we talk about in these classes. They often will have chronically elevated white blood cell counts. They'll have, a lot of times their inflammatory markers that we can measure in the blood are chronically elevated. And so that chronic inflammation is a lot of stress on the body, and it plays a role. It's not the only role, but it plays a role in all these chronic diseases that we have. And so we're when we say we want to knock down inflammation, we're trying to get rid of, you know, because foods that bring on chronic inflammation are animal products and oils and processed foods. And so that's why we try to get rid of those as much as we can. And so then you don't have the chronic inflammation going on. And I see this in clinical practice all the time. I'm always having to tell my colleagues, sometimes they'll freak out because some of my patients that are on a plant-based diet, they have really low white blood cell counts, like 3,000, 4,000, and they kind of freak out. It's like, it's still in the normal range, but the low end of normal range. And that's just a sign that you don't have chronic inflammation. And Dr. Greger has some videos on that particular topic. And so it's a good example, but then here's a great example. So they have really low white cell count, but then when they get a cold or they get, you know, some other illness, you'll measure their white blood cell count, and it goes really high because that's appropriate, right? So that's the whole purpose of our immune system is you have, you know, enough white blood cells, and then when you have an infection or something going on, the white cell count goes way up because your body is going to fight that infection. Whereas when people that have a lot of chronic diseases, they always have really high white counts, like 12,000, 10,000, 9,000. That's because they have this chronic inflammation going on all of the time. And then it might go even a little bit higher when they get sick, but yeah.
So does that mean also that then if they have that chronic inflammation going, then if they do get an infection or something, their body can't fight it as well because it's busy doing all this other?
I mean, it's not quite that simple, but
okay.
it happens to be that people that have chronic conditions for lots of different reasons don't tend to mount as good of a response. So like a lot of times elderly people that are in poor health, they'll get a vaccine or something and they won't really, oh, I didn't feel sick at all. That's actually not a good sign. You actually want to, like when you hear about people having, oh, I felt really terrible the next day after I got that vaccine. It's like that's because they're usually, not every case, but usually it's because they mounted a really good immune response, made a lot of antibodies to that vaccine because they incited an inflammatory response to try to make antibodies to that vaccine. That's just another example. But yeah, so it's whole plant foods on the other hand are anti-inflammatory and do not promote chronic inflammation. So that's why one of the reasons we go. And then also other things are important too: good sleep and exercise and reducing stress and having good social support. All those pillars of lifestyle medicine also contribute to whether you have chronic inflammation or not.
Okay, and I know as we age, doesn't our immune system sort of diminish somewhat as we age, or is that just more on how we're taking care of ourselves? And
I mean, in general, it does, but it's also, I think a lot of it has to do with our overall health as well.
Okay.
But it is true to say that people, that's why elderly, we usually give a double dose of flu shot because they don't mount as good of a response to making enough antibodies to the flu shot. So the people over 65 get basically a double dose of it so that they will get the similar response as somebody that's younger. So that's a good example. But yeah, you're correct in saying that immune system is a little bit more hampered as you get older, but there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of those is the poorer health.
okay, and my other question was about collagen. And I read that in the newsletter, I think in January newsletter, it had an article about collagen and how at one time it was thought that you had to have the animal amino acids, or I don't really know what collagen is. That's one question, but then at the end of the article, it was kind of concluded, I thought, that our bodies already make the collagen. But then there was also something I thought I heard in that one of those Blue Zone things about and I think, Scott, I think you mentioned this as the three sisters, the corn, squash, and beans, that was supposed to be really good for producing collagen. I thought I heard that, but I just wondered if you could talk about that a little bit. Like, what does that like, why why those foods specifically? Is it because they have the right combination of amino acids, and then the relationship between that and our bodies producing amino acids also?
Well, those are separate things. So yeah, that was the article. Kathy Meldrum, a physical therapist on Eugene Plant-Based Providers, wrote that article, and you can go back to that and read that. But we do know that you do not need to take in collagen from your diet. Our body makes all that we need, and so it's not, because proteins get broken down. Collagen is just a protein, and so if you were to eat collagen by eating taking a collagen supplement or whatever, it's just going to get broken down into its amino acid parts, and then your body's going to reassemble it to whatever protein it needs. It's not going to, just because you eat collagen doesn't mean you're going to put more collagen in your body. So as long as you're getting well-balanced diet, and if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you'll be getting all the amino acids you need. All plant foods are all complete in their protein. The only two foods that are not completed in all their amino acids are animal products. It's actually egg whites, which is the protein in egg whites is albumin. That's an incomplete protein. And then gelatin, which is also made from animal. That's also incomplete protein. So eating beans, corn, and squash, all the other whole plant foods, you're going to be getting all the amino acids, all the protein you need, and then your body makes all the collagen you need. And so there's a lot of kind of myths about that. Dr. Greger has some videos about collagen also.
Okay, thank you.
So Monica, I'd like to kind of add a little bit. One thing is this book, How Not to Age by Greger. I think it'll answer a number of your questions, and you'll be fascinated by it, and you'll find it very interesting and very helpful. There's about 11 pathways in which that will promote aging or reverse aging, and one of those is inflammation. So the 6th grader explanation goes something like this. You hit your knee with a hammer. You say, ouch. It swells up. It bleeds a little bit, and your body goes in and repairs it. That's acute inflammation. You hit your knee again, and you do it 3 times a day. After you do this for enough times, that becomes chronic inflammation. One is helpful. The other is detrimental. Now, what makes the second one detrimental? You get an accumulation of dead cells, which release chemicals, which cause more inflammation throughout the body. The body the proteins get altered. The body starts attacking them to get rid of them. Some of those proteins may look like normal tissue in your body, and then they can attack the normal tissues. That's autoimmune type disorders. You don't want chronic inflammation. And one of the main causes of chronic inflammation are the free radicals that are produced by the food you eat. Those free radicals are from the meat, dairy, and eggs in largest amounts. And so you want to eat the antioxidants to hook up with the free radicals so they don't cause inflammation or rust in your body. Like you see metal out in the yard, it turns rusty. That's an oxidation process. It's not necessarily inflammation, but that's another way you age. So these are kind of connected in many ways. And so eating foods that are anti-inflammatory are going to be most helpful for you. And eating foods that are inflammatory or pro-inflammatory are going to be most harmful to you.
Like free radicals.
Correct.
Okay, and that's why we eat the the blueberries and antioxidant foods.
Correct. The antioxidants have the free radicals are stealing electrons from molecules they're running into or other atoms they're running into. Well, the antioxidants are able to share those so it doesn't allow the free radicals to damage other parts of your body.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Jamie.
Okay, I have a lot of questions, but I also have a suggestion, and I don't know if it would be helpful or not, but you know, airports are green vegetable deserts. And if you can find one, it's so exorbitantly expensive, you have to think about it for quite a lot. So I was thinking maybe with Scott's nuts and dried fruit, maybe some sugar snap peas in a bag might be a helpful thing to have on an airplane. And then there's this other question. It's a bigger question. So 20 years ago, I was hanging out with the raw foodists because I was young and adventurous. And I got this book called Blatant Raw Foods Propaganda. And it was along with the Sprout Man book. Some of you have heard of the Sprout Man book. And I've had it in the bookshelf. I've always thought it was just so radical and so bizarre. I would only read it out by the river in my bathing suit, you know, because it was just too, it just spoke too much to nature and the importance of one's body not to read it in that setting. Anyway, I know I'm weird, but as I was hearing Scott talk about inflammation, I was remembering this book, and he just drummed over and over again on the fact that people who eat raw food basically don't have as many white blood cells floating around in their body because your body isn't inflamed. So is there really some truth to this?
I haven't read the book, so I can't speak to it.
Charlie has a lot of fruits and vegetables on his plates.
Yeah.
Raw ones.
Yeah, it's always thought to be good to do a 50-50 raw, but there's a lot, I know a lot of people from the raw food camp that eat only raw, they say, well, and there's some truth to it, how when you cook food, because your body then, as it's digesting it causes some inflammation because your body's just, it's foreign and it's like, so there's something to be said for cooked food seems to cause a little more of a response than raw food in some circumstances. I don't know how solid the science is on that, but I can't speak intelligently on that particular topic, but I've heard people from the raw food camp kind of say that. But I think, you know, what Dr. Greger says is whether it's probably good to eat it both raw and cooked, but it's better to basically eat it in the way that you'll eat the most of it. So if you're only eating a small amount of vegetables because you're eating it raw, you sit there and you have to chew so long, and you can't eat as much volume of vegetables if you're eating it all raw. Whereas if you eat some cooked, then you can probably eat a larger volume of vegetables if you eat some cooked. And so I think there's something to be said for that as well. But
So the science isn't there yet completely, but there's other science that hasn't been there until now. And it kind of, maybe you could think of it on a continuum. You don't want to cook your vegetables until they're brown and screaming. Get what you can in that's lightly cooked and even fresh, maybe.
that sounds good.
Gregor seems to think steaming seems to be one of the best things you could do if you're going to be cooking greens or, mushrooms, steaming them in an Instapot or however you choose to do it is a reasonable thing. And I agree with Scott that having some raw and some cooked is what we have come to the conclusion seems to work pretty well. But if you wanted to do all raw, I surely wouldn't argue with anybody who chose to do that. I think that's definitely, as foods are grown in nature, a healthy way to go.
Just an
Okay.
interesting line of inquiry.
Yeah. Any other questions? Dave and Cherie are next.
Hi, yeah, so 2 weeks ago, we decided to escape the ice storm and go to Disneyland. And I thought that, I wasn't gonna be able to eat anything in the park because we were in the park all day. But I was surprised that they now have a plant-based option entree on most of the restaurant menus.
Huh.
And I mean, it's not the non-oil healthiest stuff, but at least they're making an effort to put a plant-based option. So I was able to eat one of those at every place we ate in the park.
Great.
Downtown Disney, I asked, do you have anything vegan? And they had a great vegan jambalaya, not on the menu. You have to ask.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
And I also found that, where do we go? Black Bear Diner.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have necessarily things on the menu, but I Google, the name of the restaurant vegan, and then there's people that post about what you can eat at these particular restaurants. So I was able to, I believe, eat vegan at every meal down there.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. Anyone else? Try to go back and look at the room here. See if there are any hands that are popping up. It's a quiet room tonight, Scott.
Okay, I'll talk.
Hey,
Okay,
Ken.
No, it's counting on me.
okay, Ken. Fire
Well,
away.
I've been trying to find the name of it here since we were talking about white blood cells. And, I got three doctors, gastro, urologist, and a primary provider. And I get all kinds of conflicting information. As we know, they don't spend a lot of time in college learning about food, but I have a disease that doesn't sound very good, but what it is I have a low white blood count disease. And so that's on my chart as a problem. But you guys have told me, and I just like to hear you say it, it's a good thing not to have too many or a whole lot of white blood cells. Now, I eat a lot of salads, and I try to make them really diverse, so I eat a lot of raw vegetables. I hope that's why I have white blood cell disease, white blood cell shortage disease. Tell me some more about that.
Well, the term is, so it's, the medical term is leukopenia. So that leuco means white and penia means low in the blood. But it's, so, you know, most lab normal ranges are somewhere between 3,000 and 9,000. And so you don't want, if it's below 3,000, that's a problem. So it just should be at the low end of the normal range. So it's still technically normal, but just at the low end of normal. But where I've had patients and other colleagues come to me and freak out is because, like, I've had patients where their white blood cell count was always like 8,000 or 9,000 all the time, kind of in the mid-range, high-end normal. And then after they go on a plant-based diet, they suddenly, within 6 months, it dropped to like 3,000. So that makes the provider freak out and think they need to send them to a hematologist because there's something going on. But I just tell them, no, it's fine. And then it's not just as simple as just the total white cell count. There's also neutrophils and eosinophils, and there's all other types of other cells within the white blood cells. And so you have to look at the whole profile of the complete blood count to determine if there's a problem or not, and if it needs to be further investigated. But if we're just talking about your total white blood cell count, as long as it's above 3,000, you're in right around the low end of that normal range, then you're good.
What's the numeral or the numeric title for 3,000 what? 3,000.
Well, it depends on the lab. I'll take a look at a lab right now. Unless Charlie wants to chime in.
I don't know, 3,000 per cubic something inch.
I'm looking at my lab results right here right now. So I'll tell you what my white cell count is. Mine is 4.8 thousand. So it's
cubic centimeter.
Cubic, so it's K/UL is what it says. Normal range is 4 on this particular lab range. It's going to vary depending on the lab. It's based on that any particular lab is going to have its own reference range because it's based on all the labs that they run in a particular community. So it's not exact science what the normal reference range is for labs. It's complicated, but it can range anywhere from 3,000, 3.5 all the way up to 9 or 10. And so the normal reference range on my particular lab that mine was done was between 4 and 10 is considered normal, and I'm 4.8. So see, I'm at the low end of that normal range. But then there's also, if they do a differential, you'll see like all the subfractions, all the other types of white blood cells, the neutrophils and all the other stuff. But does that answer your question? I don't know what I'd have to look it up. I don't know what K/UL stands for.
I have, it's 4,500 to 11,000 cells per MCL. Microliter, cells per microliter. I don't know.
So it doesn't really matter though. For Ken, it doesn't really matter. The units don't really matter.
Not.
Just what's the number?
We don't want to confuse you with the facts because we're confused.
I think the doctors are confused.
Yeah.
One of those doctors
How
always
low
said,
is your white count, Ken?
I don't remember. I'll try to find it here.
Try to find it. Okay. Anybody else? So the question from David Sheree, I know the honey is not vegan, but is there, oops, I lost it. And then Edward will be coming up here. Let me just finish this one right here. But is there a downside to putting a teaspoon of honey in my tea every morning? So the only downside is that it has 0 fiber, and you're giving your body a blast of sweetener, which is kind of reducing your ability to enjoy more sweetness from the fruit that you have in your diet. So it's a choice you get to make. And if you're not destroying your taste buds with too much honey, a teaspoon is probably fine. Likely not gonna hurt you at all. But for some people, 1 teaspoon is not enough. They like that blast of sugar, and so they want more, and it becomes kind of addicting. So it just depends on your particular body and how you react. But if you're using it kind of as a flavoring and not as a food, which at a teaspoon for the day should not be a problem. But if you're kind of an extremist guy like me, who says, I just don't want to torture myself, I'm personally not going to use it, or choose personally not to use it. But that's a personal choice from each of us. I hope that answers it. Maybe Scott has something else to add.
No, I think that's well said.
All right, so we're going to go to Edward next and then Dottie.
So we just learned about basmati rice, brown basmati rice, and it's pretty good. I like it. It's a little more expensive, a little higher calorie. Supposedly considerably less arsenic.
Arsenic is a problem for certain rices, and you want the least amount of arsenic in your rice. Usually, Gregor says buy rice from California. So if you're buying basmati rice and it's from California, it probably has less, definitely has less arsenic in it, likely. Whether the brown has less than white, I've never heard of that, but you've taught us something if that's the case.
Cool, yeah.
So you're definitely right to be concerned. We really, actually, since Gregor came out with that a couple of years ago, I think he was kind of talking about it. We kind of switched a meal or two a week from rice to potato because of that issue while we were trying to navigate through there. That's just
Okay.
what we chose to do. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
So it sounds like it's a really good choice. Google even says that it has more fiber than regular brown rice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good choice. I'm good with it.
Sorry, it's a better choice than brown rice. What is a better choice than brown rice?
Basmati brown.
And my wife tells me it was in bulk at Winco.
Okay, that's a good way to buy it, for sure.
Thank you very much.
All right, Dottie.
Well, my question related back to the honey. I was always under the impression, and I'm wondering if it's a myth. I thought honey, especially if it's done locally, helped with preventing allergies, and I thought honey had redeeming qualities. I know the sugar part that you talked about, but am I wrong? I don't know.
Well, the people who sell the honey, they will claim that it definitely has anti-allergenic properties. And I don't know that I've actually seen the studies. Maybe there was one study, but I wasn't sure who actually was in charge of the study that I was shown. In other words, I don't remember anything from Gregor saying that eating honey is going to cut down on your allergies. Scott, I don't know if you've seen anything from Gregor about that issue. I know it's an issue here locally that people, when you go to farmers market, they tell you, eat the honey. It has the, allergens in it. And if you eat this, you're going to have less allergy symptoms. But generally, you have to kind of keep increasing the allergens. Like when you do allergy desensitization shots, you start with a small dose and then you keep raising it a little higher, and next week a little higher and a little higher till your body gets used to it. Now, that's not what's done when you're eating honey. You're getting the same level unless you're eating higher and higher amounts of honey each week, which I surely wouldn't recommend because we're trying to keep you down to a smaller amount. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on it, but those are mine.
Yeah, I don't know of any science on it as far as, and legitimate stuff on health improvements. I don't know if Eric, Dr. Colgrove wants to mention it. I know you're not supposed to give honey to babies there's a certain, I think it's botulism or something, a certain reason.
That's it.
Yeah.
Eric, are you around? Any thoughts? Well, maybe you're off.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay.
I was washing some dishes. Sorry. Yeah. So the problem with honey wait, my video's off. Yeah, the problem with honey is that newborn babies don't have any kind of bacteria to compete with the botulism spores, and so they can lodge in the intestines and can start producing the botulism toxin in newborn babies that don't have bacteria that will outcompete the areas that the spores can land in. But they won't land and start producing the toxin. It's a very potent toxin that can kill you very tiny amounts. And every honey has the botulism spores in it. It's just not dangerous to anybody who's got bacteria in their intestines. It just kind of goes right through and has nowhere to land. The tremendous amount of bacteria that we have in the gut will keep it at bay. But when babies don't have that, the microflora in their biome, they will have they will be at risk for getting botulism spores landing in their intestines and then producing the toxin. And I've seen this before, and it's pretty devastating. They can easily die from it. So, yeah. Most people say that don't use honey up until 12 months. That's what the American Academy of Pediatrics warns. But the real thing is that probably you're safe after 4 to 6 months. You've got plenty of bacteria in your gut, really after a month or 2 or 3. But still, to be on the safe side, they say 12 months.
So Eric, I'm curious what your thoughts are in some of the health fairs I've been to with the people who sell honey. They claim that it reduces allergy symptoms. Have you heard that here locally? Have you seen any articles that document that actually might work? And what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny. Right when you were saying that, I was starting to look up the science on it. So maybe we get back to people about that.
Right.
Okay. I haven't seen anything for sure, but for me personally, who is an allergy sufferer, even has mild asthma or had mild asthma, when I cleaned up my diet and started eating this way, my allergies and my asthma completely 100% cleared. I don't worry about honey, or I try not to. I take little bits of honey, and that's fine, but trying not to. Like I try not to take much sugar of any kind, but yeah. And that gets me back to whoever's comment was about snack foods. I don't know if you saw in the chat about snack foods. One of my favorites is now date balls. Charlie makes a wicked good date ball, and that's kind of inspired me to pick that up more. I've been doing more date ball stuff. You can really pack it with some other really good nutrition, not just dates, but it just having those dates. I've got a sweet tooth, and so having that kind of snack is just wonderful. Yes, it's I think of it as a dessert snack, but you can use it, take it on a trip or something like that too. I think it's really good. And the other thing I was going to say about it was the idea of corn nuts. Corn nuts are really, really simple. Corn nuts, you can get the old traditional ones. I can't remember what company makes those, but yeah, they've got a little salt, but it's not even that much. You'd be surprised. There are some newer companies that make healthier versions of it, and you will use like nutritional yeast, and much less salt. Really, you think of corn nuts as salty or oily or whatever, but they're really not that bad. They satisfy the crunch factor, and they're a good option. So, anyways, and the other one I always go to is those purple sweet potatoes. I always talk about these in classes. The Okinawan sweet potatoes. I would show you. I was just eating some, but it's like my favorite thing to eat. So it's just because it's so easy. You don't do anything to it, and it's bright purple. It's got to have some good antioxidants in it. And the Okinawans eat it. If it's good for the Okinawans, it's got to be good for me. So
Thanks for sharing that,
awesome. Yeah.
Eric. Okay, Marcia and then Ken.
Yeah, getting back to honey, I heard that along with a teaspoon of cinnamon is supposed to be good for colds, and also, or honey in hot tea is supposed to be good.
I have seen a study where they compared a teaspoon of honey that was in tea with cough syrup, like a DM cough syrup, and they were equally effective. So there is, I did see it was even a randomized controlled trial on using honey to suppress cough, and it was shown to be at least as effective as DM, dextromorphan.
Okay.
Now that I thought of it, yeah.
Okay, Ken.
You need to unmute, Ken.
Since we're talking about sweeteners, of course, my favorite sweetener is raspberries, but then I always have some strawberries around, frozen or fresh. So that's certainly my favorite sweetener. But if I need a powdered sweetener, you can't beat date sugar. It's got 9 grams of sugar per tablespoon. Syrup, maple syrup, just comparing, 12 grams of sugar per tablespoon, and honey has 17. So honey has almost twice the grams of sugar as date sugar. Date sugar is also full of antioxidants, and it has some fiber, which the other two don't. And it's amazingly high on antioxidants. So I'm a fan of date sugar, but of course I have to, just like raisins, I really have to fight to stay away from those things, because I love sugar for some reason. Think I'm addicted to it?
Well, thanks for that comparison on the date sugar. That was interesting. I hadn't ever looked at those things.
Yeah.
Because date sugar is just ground up dates. It's not like a highly processed food.
Man, if you want to add sugar to your strawberries, which is kind of unnecessary, but we're used to it, date sugar in strawberries is the heaven. I think it's way better than, at home we used to get granulated sugar in our strawberries. Date sugar is even way better tasting. So I'm a fan.
Well, I have a sweet tooth too, and that's one of the hardest things for me is like giving up my chocolate, because I got used to eating like a little piece of dark chocolate every day, just about, maybe more than once a day. But there's a really good recipe on the website for these no-bake brownies, and it's just dates and nuts and unsweetened cocoa. It's really good. But also that last week's class really helped me with talking about the dried fruit, because I was having trouble eating enough fruit, and I don't usually eat dried fruit, but so I started eating apricots, and I found these really, I was going to ask is like, do you know if I got these really good freeze-dried mango at Trader Joe's. Are those, do they have any nutrients in them when they're such an odd texture, but boy, those are good, and they're so sweet.
you just have to look to see if they have any added oil or sugar, because sometimes those dried fruits that are commercial packaged, they add sugar and oil
Yeah,
sometimes.
I think these don't, but I did notice on the apricots, they had that sulfur dioxide or something. Is that?
Like a preservative kind of
Yeah.
thing. Probably not the worst thing, but you know,
But
if you can dry your own fruit, you could keep all that stuff out if you have a dehydrator or something.
I
I also saw.
also,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say also, I started cooking without oil, and I'm just amazed how easy it is to saute vegetables without oil and how good they taste. And the other night I made some, I got a package of like chopped up butternut squash uncooked, and then I was amazed how sweet that was, and I just put it in the pan with a little bit of water and added some black beans and then some greens, and it was really flavorful. I was just, even without any seasonings, I'm starting to really like the, I mean, these vegetables, and you get good ones, they taste so much better than I ever thought they could. But anyway, so that's my story.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into, there was a question in the chat about MCT oil. What about MCT oil? And from what I understand, that's a saturated fat. It's a mostly like coconut oil. And so we want to avoid oil in general because it's a processed food and just pure fat, little to no nutrients. And then a saturated fat is the worst. And so when we rate oils, the saturated fat oils, which are like coconut oil, palm kernel oil, those are the worst. The tropical oils are the worst. They actually, contribute towards heart disease and things like that. So you don't want those. And so that's why olive oil would be if you're ever going to use oil, olive oil is better than the other oils because it doesn't have as much saturated fat. It's got more of the unsaturated fat. But in general, it's better just to go without oil, because if you're going to go out to eat, like many of us still do, it's almost impossible to eat without any oil because that's just what they use to cook. But when we're at home, we can, just like said, we can Monica said, we can saute with vegetable broth or vegetable stock or even water saute, and we can avoid the oil, because fat is 9 calories per gram. So 9 calories per gram for fat, and carbohydrates and protein are only 4 calories per gram. So, if you're trying to lose weight, you want to avoid the oils. So it's just a processed food. It's the fat equivalent of sugar. So it's just the sugar. White sugar is was once sugar cane or sugar beets, and now it's white granulated sugar. Oil is just the fat version of that. So it's just junk food basically. But you'll hear all these health claims from coconut oil and all these things because it's just good marketing. It's not in good science. It's just a seed of truth where they say, oh, it's just medium chain fat and it's actually good. And it's like, well, there's maybe a short-term study or two that might have shown that, but like you learn from these classes, it's what's the balance of the evidence? What's the summation of all the evidence say about certain foods and things? And that's where it rests. And even in the American College of Cardiology, the American Heart Association, they all say don't do coconut oil and saturated fat. So
yeah, I just noticed at the grocery store, I was gonna make some kind of like granola bar kind of things for my husband. I thought it would be better if we bought, our own things and put it in what was in it. And I started looking at some of the packages, and it amazed me that some of the dried fruits and nut mixes, even if they're raw and they're unsalted, you look at the back, and for each nut, they separately on one of them had in parentheses, and then they would say, so each nut was different, obviously, and it would say things like sunflower oil, and then it says things like, it could be one of these. And it will say palm oil, canola oil, peanut oil. It will say things like that. And then it also had, one of them had cottonseed oil. And I was like, well, where did that one come from? I had not seen that one yet. We know that he's talking about rice earlier. Cottonseed, I'm guessing would come from places probably just like the rice that had the arsenics too. So I don't know, maybe they needed to get a little income or something, so they threw that in there too. But each nut had a different thing. Instead of them telling you, this is what is on this, they put it in a parentheses and said, could be. And then they listed like 4 different oils that could be in it. I'm like, those were for the roasted ones. Well, I don't know, maybe even for the other ones that were not roasted, but they just got, the labeling is so hard, you know. I don't know. So, oh well.
It really adds to confusion on the part of the public, which is unfortunate.
But I hadn't seen cottonseed oil. That was a new one.
Yeah. Someone's asking about best non-dairy milk. And my thought on that is soy milk is probably the first choice. Unless you have some allergy to soy. Most Americans don't get enough soy in their diet. It comes in either plain or it comes in vanilla. And you can learn to like it after a week or two, even if you're drinking a cow's milk. You know, it's kind of a mind over matter thing. Almond milk, the nut milks, almond or oat or rice or hemp, cashew, all those are reasonable choices also if you don't like soy or can't take soy. And that's my thought on it. I think most people like almond milk in terms of the people I've interacted with. They're really comfortable with that one. And it comes with different amounts of sugar, 90, 60, 30. So try to get the one with the least amount of sugar, and you may have to progress yourself down. If you find it's just not tasteful at 30 or no sugar added, start with the 60 and go down from there week by week. Jamie.
Well, I noticed that you, Charlie, you use a soy Bella machine, you said, and so I went researching that, and I just wanted to share with people that on Poshmark or Mercari, you can find those secondhand for a pretty reduced price.
To make your own, you can buy the soybean, an organic soybean. You can get it online, or you could get it at a local market that has it. Here, I think I get mine at the natural grocers here in Eugene, but I'm sure they're around the world. You can get them, and they're so easy to make. You just put water in this machine and put in a cup, not a full cup, but there's a little measuring cup of the soybeans, and it just makes it for you, and you pour it into a container and put it in the refrigerator. Saves you from having to keep garbage containers, expanding the garbage in the world. It doesn't have the added calcium. It doesn't have that some of the other milks have. But if you're getting your calcium from greens and beans, you're probably doing fine. What is the best machine to make nut milk? The Soy Bella also makes a really good almond milk. It's called Soy Bella, Soybella. I don't have stock in the company, but it's what I use. Yolanda, you've got a maker there. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, based on your recommendation and some research we did, we opted for the Meomat machine. We bought it on Amazon. It makes really good soy milk, and oat milk are the only two that we've used. And we feel really good about what we're making, and also not having a wax carton to deal with, and there are no additives. And then the pulp from the soy milk, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, the okara.
Yeah,
We add to whatever we're having for dinner. Sometimes I'll make a seasoned patty of some kind. It's really good. If you feel good, you're doing a good thing for the earth as well as for yourself.
good for you. Congratulations.
Thank
There's
you.
a question. There's a question in the chat about coffee creamer, and that's a good segue to that because best thing to do would be to drink it black, because that would be no added sugar or anything processed. But as far as coffee creamer, if you could use the soy milk, the almond milk, the oat milk, whatever, that would be the next best choice because some of those have added sugar. So you want something ideally doesn't have added sugar, but if it's one of the thing, like for me, I use it's an oat milk creamer, so it does have a little sugar in it. So, but it's just that's like my besides fruit is my dessert. That's when I drink a coffee, it's just maybe a tablespoon in there in a cup of coffee. So it's just one of the things. It would be better. I'm trying to get myself to switch to black coffee, and I think I'll get there someday. But it's just something I still enjoy. But it's not like I'm eating sugar elsewhere. So it's mostly just in the coffee creamer. But yeah, ideally be black or just use one of the nut milks. Because I've tried that with because I drink oat milk that my wife actually makes. It's just oats through a blender and then puts a couple of dates in it to sweeten it with a little bit of vanilla. And that's what I use for my oatmeal and my muesli and stuff like that. I've tried to just put that in my coffee, but I'd almost rather drink it black than use that because it kind of separates out and it's not that great. So, so that's what I do.
Yolanda, what was the name of, one more time, they're asking the name of your machine there?
It's called the Miomat, Miomat.
Miomat. And could you
Mio.
tell Mio
Uh-huh.
Miomat.
Miomat. Here, I'll put it in the chat.
Good. And how did you decide on that as opposed to the soy Bella?
We watched some videos on YouTube and read some reviews.
Uh-huh.
And it was mostly, I think, people talking about taste, wasn't that?
Yeah.
And so, and it's real efficient. Just this little bitty, I'll be right back.
Okay. And we're going to get to Monica, then Jamie.
This
next.
little bitty container of soybean,
Yeah.
it makes enough soy milk for us for 2 days. And this is about a half a cup.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's on Amazon. And it does soy milk, which has to be cooked and all that, in 35 minutes.
Can it do oat milk?
Yeah, I made oat milk too. I've also
cool.
made oat milk in my Blendtec, but it makes a nice creamy oat milk as well. It's finer than what I make in my Blendtec.
Yeah, it was a little more expensive than the soy Bella.
Yeah.
But we decided based on the reviews to, even at this one was just at $200. Given what we're paying for soy milk in cartons, it pays for itself in less than 6 months for us. So.
Great. Thank you both.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Okay. We'll go Monica next and then Jamie.
Oh, okay. I had a question about the soy. It seemed like years ago there was I heard that it could be dangerous, because it has natural estrogen, like if it could cause breast cancer, or have you ever, I mean, I haven't heard that for anything about that for a long time, but it seemed like years ago I was kind of afraid I eat tofu now, but I was sort of afraid to eat soy because I had heard that unless it's just like maybe if you had a history of it or if you had breast cancer, you should avoid it. Do you know anything?
It's one of the myths that Scott,
Okay.
do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, I'll try to make it the shorter. I'll try to make it the shorter version because I have a longer version of that. But so yeah, the original study was in rats, and it showed the phytoestrogens in soy showed increased breast cancer recurrence in rats, and so that's where that recommendation came from. But then actually, it's been 13 years ago now. 13 years ago, they discovered that there are 2 receptors in humans for soy. We have alpha receptor and beta receptor. And so it turns out we're not rats, and we don't deal with soy anything similar to rats. And so soy is good, because the reason that we thought there was kind of suspicion with that is because in Asian countries where they eat the most soy, they have much lower rates of breast cancer than in America. So we thought this doesn't seem to jive. And so they discovered, and actually when I went to the International Conference on Nutrition and Medicine through the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, PCRM, in August of last year, or August of 2022, I got to see a presentation of the original study that they discovered these two different receptors. So I saw the original research presentation. And so it ends up that phytoestrogen, which is the estrogen in soy, phyto meaning plant, actually stimulates the estrogen receptor in places that you want it to be stimulated, like in your blood vessels and your bones, and the places that the estrogen has good effects on the body, and it blocks the estrogen in the places you don't want it. It blocks it in your breast tissue and other places that you might not want it, and so in your endometrial tissue and things like that. So actually soy is good, and we recommend it's recommended, Dr. Greger recommends 3 to 5 servings of soy per day. You don't want to overdo it, because if you were to drink, you can't overcome that receptor. So if you were to drink like 2 gallons of soy milk a day, that would be too much, and you could actually cause some increase in something called insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, which is a cancer promoter. So you wouldn't want to drink 2 gallons of soy milk a day, but 3 to 5 servings of soy. So edamame, tofu, a little bit of soy milk, those are all good. And actually studies show it reduces the risk of breast cancer and breast cancer recurrence. So the official statement is yes to soy, even people with estrogen positive breast cancer history.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie.
I just wanted to
Can I say one thing about the soy? The American Academy of Pediatrics still has a strongly worded warning against soy formula in babies because of this whole thing. And they say that the evidence is not really strong, but there's still a lot unknown, is what they said. And when I look back at the science they do cite, really it's so weak. All the evidence that people are talking about is such weak evidence, and a lot of it then goes further back to relying on this old kind of rat data. But some of the stuff is just so bad, and still, this is a very recent statement that the AAP had put out about soy formula in babies, and so this is what is thought to be like the best kind of science. And it's just not. It's just further perpetuating these myths that are out there. It's just horrible. So
and you'll still hear cancer doctors say, "Oh, you had estrogen positive breast cancer, avoid soy," and that data is 13 years old now. And also at that presentation I went to a couple of years ago, they actually showed the position statement of the American Cancer Society, the leader. American Cancer Society says soy is okay even with breast cancer. So they came out and even advocated for it, said it's fine. So,
well, and some people are worried about the effect of phytoestrogens on males. So some people even say that male babies should not be taking the soy even more than girls. That somehow it's going to estrogenize the male baby.
When it's really dairy that does, because dairy is full of hormones. It's from a pregnant cow, and it's all the IGF-1. That's going to feminize a male is dairy, not soy. That's the irony.
Ironic. Yes. I'm sorry, Jamie. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I didn't feel cut out at all. I was just gonna say that I'd struggled a lot with creamer for tea and trying all those different ones, and finally settled on Costco makes an oat milk, and it's rich enough. I use it as a creamer, so it's cost effective, and it's not the best. It has a little oil in it, but it's probably not as bad as those creamers at the store.
That's exactly what I use for my coffee. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel naughty when I'm doing it.
Yeah, well, you're using a tiny amount, you know, it's not like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it's not a food.
yeah,
We're not using it as a food. It's just a little bit.
It's a treat.
but Costco has the macadamia milk. This one called Milkadamia. I was just speaking myself. I still kind of feel like it's good for us to get some calcium. So I've been trying to eat some, drink some milk, plant milk during the day, here and there. I think it's important for kids. Kids have growing bones, and I think they definitely have a calcium need that's above what we have. Although I think we all probably have some calcium need, but I don't think we're getting enough calcium from the kale and beans that we eat. Those are two sources, but I kind of suspect that's probably not quite enough. And I don't feel real safe that we should be taking calcium supplements. But so I think we should get calcium from our food. And instead of, I don't drink cow's milk, so I've been drinking other plant milks. And this is my go-to plant milk from Costco. It's Milkadamia, which is macadamia milk. And it's delicious. It's unsweetened. And I love it.
How much fat's in it?
0.5 grams.
Really?
Yeah.
Because as nuts, those things are really high in fat. So it's pretty well
Well,
diluted.
the nut is, I guess, but not the milk. Yeah, no, it's and there's zero sugar, zero total sugar, zero added sugar. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I've been doing a lot of talking. There's a couple more questions in there. Why don't you answer these two, Charlie? Our multivitamins and protein powders.
the best multivitamin. So we try to we don't try to encourage you to take a multivitamin. We encourage you to eat a variety of whole plant-based foods so that you get your majority of vitamins from your food. And we do encourage you to supplement with B12 if you're under age 65. B12 is so important to take once a week, 2,000 micrograms once a week. If you don't take B12, whether you're old or whether you're young, if you develop a deficiency, you can get neurologic problems, you can get cognitive problems. It's not a happy scene if you're not making sure you get enough B12. And so make sure you supplement with B12. Cyanocobalamin is probably the one that Greger recommends, because that's what the studies show actually reverses deficiency of B12. So take it every day. If you're over age 65, but take it once a week, the B12, if you're under age 65. Over age 65, you want to do 1,000 micrograms every day. And under age 65, it's 2,000 micrograms once a week. Seems like a really large difference. But, you know, if you're younger than 65, you can get by on 2,000 for the whole week. You need 7,000 for the week, basically, if you're over age 65. Okay, with that said, the only other vitamin is vitamin D. And vitamin D, if you're able to get enough sun and you have light skin and, you know, you store it well, you may be able to get enough in summer. McDougall seems to think most people can get enough, but was living a little bit south of Oregon when he was promoting that. But I still think he kind of promotes your vitamin D from the sun. But for those of us living in Oregon, Greger is pretty keen on making sure we get about 2,000 international units every day to kind of make sure everybody's getting enough vitamin D, but some people need a little more. So if you have a family history of osteopenia or osteoporosis, or if you've had a bone fracture, and it's probably a good idea to get a vitamin D level, make sure it's above 30, and then you can adjust your dosage. Gregor seems to think taking 4,000 units, international units, seems to be a safe range. Some people take 10,000 units a day and seem to get by, but it is kind of a fat soluble, so you don't really want to take too much. And I wouldn't encourage anybody to take over 4,000. And I would encourage you to take 2,000 international units once a day, as a routine for most people. So multivitamin, probably don't need it. If you have to take it, I don't know what the best one is. The other is protein powder. This is kind of one of my pet peeves. It's like, we're promoting, we've got a country that's proteinaholic. We've got an obsession with protein. Protein is not the deficiency in our diet. What is the deficiency is fiber. You want fiber, and I'm afraid that they've stripped out the fiber from the protein powders. So you're getting less fiber than if you just ate the legumes, the peas, split peas or whatever, or the vegetable peas. Eat the food, the whole food, get your fiber from that, and don't waste your money on supplements. You don't need to do it. And if you want to build muscle, then do resistance exercises and build your muscles. And you're going to get enough protein as long as you're eating enough calories. If you're hungry all the time and not getting enough calories, then maybe you need a little more protein, but get it from your food is what we encourage you to do. That's as quick as I could do. And what's this? Elmhurst Really Good No Oils. Is that protein powder? I don't know what that means. Scott, do you know what that means? Elmhurst Really Good No Oils?
No oils. I'm not sure. Yeah, must be protein powders. I don't know, because a lot of the protein powders that they sell at like Costco and places are whey protein powder. Whey protein is from dairy, so that's the worst. So if you are gonna, like if you're a professional athlete, you're a bodybuilder, those kind of people, or elderly and just don't eat very much food and you're underweight, you're having a hard time, then a little bit of protein powder in a smoothie or something is not the worst thing. You just want to make sure it's like a hemp protein powder, pea protein powder. You don't want to do you don't want to do the isolated soy protein powder, because it actually, studies show it increases IGF-1, also that cancer promoter. So so for 90+% of everybody, like Charlie said, no protein powder needed. But like you'll see the vegan bodybuilders and stuff, they're burning so many calories that they have a hard time getting enough food in to get enough calories and thus get all the protein they need to build those big frames and big muscles. And so they tend to use a little bit of the protein powders in their smoothies and things just to get extra. And then again, if you're grossly underweight and you're and elderly and you're having a hard time eating enough food to maintain your weight, then it's just a way to add in some calories. But you could also save your money and just throw in a couple handfuls of nuts or seeds or something like that, and you'd get kind of the same effect, because it's going to add a bunch of calories and thus add a bunch of protein.
So Beth says they make a vegan whey now. Amazingly. Really? So do they synthesize that somehow? And it's not whole food, plant-based, but better for animals, for those who want whey. Why you would want whey over plant protein, I have no clue. you know, there's nothing that I read in Gregor or the group. I call them the group now. I just thought of that. Barnard, McDougall, Clapper, you know, they're not promoting these things, and I really trust them with my health.
You want to learn, if you want to learn more about soy isolates, just look up what are soy isolates on the web, and you'll see two videos. One's from Dr. Gregor, where he talks about whether they're harmful or not. Of course they are. And then there's a Andrew Well, MD, that also talks about the effects of soy isolates. So I'm curious about those. So that's what I did. Look at those videos online.
Thank you, Ken.
I wonder if you're making smoothies, if you just, you know, white beans are fairly flavorless, you could maybe put in a quarter cup of those or some green peas, be almost the same, maybe.
Absolutely. You could make a smoothie and you can add whole foods in there, grind it up. If it's not sweet enough for you, you add a little dates. And you don't need to, you know, I'm not sure the exact amounts of fiber in these protein concoctions, but I'm pretty sure they've stripped out a lot of the fiber, which is what our deficiency is. So why would you want to keep being deficient in fiber? Why wouldn't you want to eat foods that have fiber in them? Maybe because you can't get enough. It's too much volume for you, but you're right. You get a lot of fiber from the beans and lentils. So that would be a much better choice. Anybody else? Doug, we haven't heard from you. Just unmute and a little more unmute. You may have,
Yeah,
there you go.
I'm sorry. I'm getting bored with the foods I've been eating, so I've been looking for recipes. And the other day I saw a recipe for chilies, basic recipe, and then they said you could add carrots and bell pepper and celery to add vegetables. But I've also read, if you eat some vegetables, you lose some nutrition. So would it be better to eat the basic chili and then eat the vegetables raw on the side? Do you lose that much when you throw them in the pot and cook them for half an hour or hour?
No, not much.
Lose that much. I think that you can eat them however you eat them, whether it's cooked or whether it's raw. You're going to get a good amount of nutrients. I must say, if you're talking about specifically like garlic, if you chop that up and you throw it immediately in the pot and cook it, you lose a lot of the health benefits from garlic, I guess, and onions too. So you want to let them rest a bit, chop them up, let them sit for about 15 minutes. You get the maximum benefit. Carrots improve their nutrition when you heat them up. And I can't remember what else improves the nutrition. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you like it together, eat it together.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And someone says, just throw in a few more veggies. You get a little more nutrition if you're worried about a little loss.
Okay.
Good suggestion, Beth. Wow, Scott, how did an hour and a half go by so fast?
That was a lot of great questions. This was one of the better open forums we've had in a while. You guys were great.
It was pretty amazing, actually. Very fun for us. Yeah, thank you everyone for your contributions, chiming in, supporting the group. Are there any last questions? We could do one or two quick ones.
Just a reminder, there's no class next week. It's in the class newsletter. if you got that Sunday morning. No class next week. And then 2 weeks from tonight, I'll do we're going to do our 2-part series on weight management. I'll do the calorie density part 1, and then Charlie will do part 2. So that's coming up in 2 weeks. So come back for that.
Someone's asking if Lisa has something to add about the book club or anything else. Lisa, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, my computer just had a moment for a second. But yeah, we have book club going. So we just had our first meeting of the year last week, and we're reading Fiber Fueled. So if you want to join in on that, we'll still be covering it next month, February 22nd, and one more time in March. So you have plenty of time to get the book and read it if you want, or you can just come and listen too. You can email me to get on the book club email list for more details. And I wanted to share too, I had something interesting today. I'm on my OB rotation in Los Angeles at Kaiser. And so I was in a few surgeries today, patients with ovarian potential cancer or just masses that could be benign. So what they do is we take them to surgery, we take some of the mass out or all of the mass, hopefully, and then we go to send it to pathology. They see if it's cancerous or not. And then the patient and everyone's just waiting in the meantime for an answer. And then if it's cancerous, we take more stuff out. If it's not, we close them up. So I got to follow the masses down to pathology and look at the slides. And the pathologist was walking me through what they're looking for. And then he was really excited and showing me a bunch of other stuff too. And he was showing me a slide from an appendix from a surgery where they took an appendix out. And he was showing me all the inflammation in the appendix. And I was so amazed. I was like, wow, there's inflammation down to the cells that we're talking about. And it's not super pretty. Not a good look for the specimens, but it was really cool to see. And you can really tell that it makes a difference whether we've got inflammation or not.
Sounds like you're learning a bunch and having fun at it too.
Yeah, it was really cool.
All right, the book club, I want to encourage people to consider attending. It's really a good experience. It's younger people, med students, and also those in the group here. Very well worth attending. Thanks for doing that.
Lisa put her email in the chat if you want to sign up.
And the last thing we want to mention too is this Sunday, our class is pretty filled up for the 2 to 3 o'clock slot, but the 3 to 4, we still have about 10 openings. If you have any friends or family who are interested, have them sign up and come to class on Sunday at the Y. 3 to 4.
You can sign up on the home page of EugenePlantBasedProviders.com. Or you can or email me or Charlie, either way. If you're just wanting to sign up for the Sunday's class.
Okay, we good?
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Great class, everyone. Good night.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone. Take care.
See you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I think a few people will see us in 1 week.